Well, welcome to today's Globe Observer Connect. It's great to have you all here today. Um, we are, this is a little bit of a different one. We thought we would pause and rather than focus on some of the science or the things that are happening with your data, we decided that it would be a great opportunity to let you ask questions of the team behind keeping the app running. And I know I don't fully appreciate everything that team does, but it's a lot of work, a lot of hard work in developing and maintaining the Globe Observer app, and I'm very grateful for the team who does it. So today, it's my pleasure to welcome Joe Wieclawek. I already said I would try to pronounce your names correctly. I am so sorry, Joe.
You overthought
Wieclawek.
it.
I did. I'm sorry. Joe is the wizard who keeps Globe Observer running, and along with a team of developers. And it is our pleasure to welcome you here. So I'm going to give you some time, Joe, just to tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll open the floor to questions and have a conversation. So, Joe, all yours.
Sure. Thank you, Holly. So let me share a little presentation that I'll walk through. Yeah, so thank you, Holly. And no worries about the name, but I'm Joe Wieclawek. I am the lead developer for the Globe Observer app. Um, I've been supporting the Globe program for past 13 years now. And I'm just one member of a much bigger team, what we call the Globe DIS team, that handles all of the technical infrastructure behind Globe. This is the Globe website. This is the data entry system, the Observer app, managing and maintaining the databases behind all that, and delivering all that great data back out to people. So just again, I'm just one representative of a much bigger team of developers, testers, system administrators, artists, and so forth. So, I want to talk to you today a little bit about what's been going on in the app, give you a little bit of a big picture of the app, the recent updates, and then talk about some of my highlights as a developer on Globe. So obviously you're familiar with the Observer app if you're here, and that comes with the great Observer protocols: clouds, mosquitoes, land cover, and trees. You might be familiar that there's also some other protocols that you can have access to for trained users, for Globe educators. There's 35 additional protocols. Most of those are available within the app. The Petasphere protocols are coming soon. We've got our team working hard to get those into the app right now, but they're, as usual, are available on the data entry website as well. So the app supports the collection of all this data, but that data's got to go somewhere, as you know. So we also have a very robust backend system that receives all of this data. Currently, we're getting about 60,000 daily submissions. It was a total in 2023 of 22.4 million measurements, and all that goes into a database where we get that back out to people or do some processing on it. And one of the cool things that we've implemented in the past few years is a automated photo approval tool. So as you know, with all of the Observer protocols, you can submit photos, photos of your clouds, of your trees, and so forth. But we want to make sure that people aren't submitting inappropriate things to the database. So in the past couple of years, we implemented this AI tool that actually analyzes the subject matter of each photo that's submitted, and then automatically approves it if it seems appropriate, or puts it into a queue if it might be questionable. Currently, we're processing about 1,600 photos per day, 50,000 last month, and since we delivered this tool, we've actually automatically approved over 800,000 photos. So that's 800,000 photos that didn't need to be looked at by a human to check to make sure that it was appropriate to go into the system. Of course, those that aren't automatically approved need to be approved by somebody. I know the members of the Observer team work hard to review those. And a shout out and thanks to Brian Campbell, who I think regularly, including just this past weekend, has gone through and approves those that the AI tool hasn't been able to approve automatically. So all of that data goes into the system. We want to be able to get it back out to people. We've got lots of great data retrieval tools. The My Observations page is probably the most obvious for the app users. That's the ability to view your observations within the app. But we also have the visualization system for viewing your data on maps or creating charts. We've got the ADAT tool for searching and exporting data. And if you're looking for something a little more automated, there's the API for data retrieval. And there's also a really cool tool that our friends at Langley Research Center have for doing satellite matching. I'm sure if you're already a Clouds user, you're familiar with this, where it takes your Clouds observation, compares it against satellite passes that may have happened at the time of your observation, and sends out this email with data from the satellite correlated with the data that you've submitted. So this is just meant to be a picture of the overall ecosystem that we help build and maintain here. And it obviously goes into a really big database that to date is about 261 million measurements from 300,000 users over time. So it's a big database, lots of people submitting great data. So next, I'll talk about some recent updates to the app. So earlier this year, hopefully you've seen and been able to appreciate and enjoy the new My Achievements feature. This allows you to receive milestone achievements when you hit 5, 10, 25 observations for your Clouds measurements, for example, as I'm showing here. It also tracks your streaks. So if you're getting out there and measuring, performing a Clouds observation every day, you hopefully have a much longer streak than I'm showing here on my screen, my sample of 2 days. Not very impressive, but only a test app. So we also recently delivered the new genus and species identification features for tree height. So you can now, when you're measuring the height of a tree, you can identify the genus and species of the tree if you're able to determine that and submit that along with the height data. Those are a couple examples of features that are very obvious to you. They're features that show up in the app and you all get to see and enjoy. But a big part of our job is to work on things that you can't necessarily see, the stuff under the hood, so to speak. And so a lot of our focus this past few months has been on some of those types of updates. So our app is what we call a hybrid app, where we're able to write most of our code once and have it work on both iOS devices and Android devices. To do that, it requires the use of some components for each of those platforms that over time can get a little bit out of date. And if they get out of date or the operating systems get upgraded, things like that, they sometimes don't work as well as they should. So those need to be upgraded periodically. Additionally, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store have compliance requirements on us to keep those things updated, because there might be security issues with components, or there might be compatibility issues with new versions of the operating systems. And so we need to stay in compliance. So the recent updates, if you saw that your app was updated from the App Store or the Play Store, a lot of that focused on those things under the hood to keep things working well with the new operating systems, as well as compliant for the stores. Just a couple more things. Talk about some highlights as a developer. As I mentioned, I've worked 13 years on this program, and it's really rewarding to see how people contribute data and work on this program and see what the students get out of it. One of the specific highlights of really seeing that impact, seeing the impact of our work from the app perspective, first came with the 2017 Eclipse, when we delivered our first version of the of the Eclipse tool. So for the first time, we're allowing citizen scientists to capture during an eclipse the air temperature and clouds in a sort of timed manner, had notifications in there and things like that. And it was so cool to see, um, to deliver a tool like this and see so many people adopt it so quickly. And I won't read through these numbers, but to know that we put out an app that was collecting all of that data in one day, and you could see the map of the data that was collected on that day. And just on a personal note, I did get to go observe the total eclipse from the campus of Clemson University in South Carolina, and that was a panorama shot that I took during the few minutes of totality we had there. And uh, I'll admit, I probably, had we not been building that tool, I probably wouldn't have made a cross country trip to a place that I don't have any other connection to, just to go see the eclipse. But after all that full time spent developing, working with Holly and the rest of the observer team to get that out there, I just felt like I had to go experience that in person. So, um, and then finally, I mean, probably the biggest part is our job as developers is to build stuff. It's what we enjoy. We like doing new things. We like doing cool things, and the Globe program's been great at allowing us um, to innovate, to try new things, to try to add new features, and and it usually starts with the question, "Wouldn't it be cool if?" Um, and when we were developing the what's now the Observer app, but it originally just started as a Clouds app. Um, the question was, wouldn't it be cool if we could show the compass on screen, so that a uh, when a citizen scientist is about to do a clouds observation and we ask them for pictures, north, south, east, and west, um, do they know? Maybe they're less familiar, where they're at. Maybe they're traveling or something, and they don't know exactly where those directions are. So it would be cool if we could put a compass in there. And so as soon as we hear that, we get down to coding, and we try to figure, okay, what would that look like? And once we're able to solve that, that leads to another. Wouldn't it be cool if we could overlay that compass on the camera view? And all these things feed off of each other, and it just makes for a really creative and innovative environment. And all those wouldn't it be cool lifts led to the augmented reality camera views that you see in the app. So, it starts with, oh, let's line up the dots for clouds, but for land cover it's a little different. So we've got to, let's line that up with the vertical bar. Or by the time the tree heights uh, tool came around, it was, well, can we now use the inclination data to calculate the angles to the base and the top of the tree. So it's just, I really appreciate that for Globe we're able to think of and look for new things to do, and always find these opportunities to innovate. So those are a couple of highlights, and hopefully I haven't blabbed on for too long, and we can now uh, take some questions.
Great. There are several questions in the chat, but I will pause and see if anybody would like to speak out loud and ask a question. This meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want your face or voice in the recording, just put your question in the chat and we'll read it out from there. Would anybody like to ask a question? And if not, I'll go read one from the chat. So I'm just reading up from the bottom, with apologies to people who got their questions in early. Eric asked a couple of questions about the overpass tool. So in clouds, we have a tool that tells you when a satellite's overhead, and you can go out and take an observation at the same time. So you can get that satellite match in your email. And Eric is asking if we can have the cloud flyover schedule in the app also show local solar noon times.
It's a great suggestion. We have the ability to alert you when the local solar noon is happening in your area. But that's a fantastic suggestion. Maybe have a list of when those upcoming solar noons are going to happen. As I said, if we're with the ability to notify, we obviously have the ability to determine that in advance, and we could certainly look at putting something like that in.
Thank you. Eduardo asks, have you considered using PWA instead of native app?
We have. We're always looking at how to evolve the app over time, and we will be looking at some even bigger upgrades in the coming year. So there's a lot of options on the table for what we use within the app. There are challenges with all technology in terms of, and all options, all frameworks, all of these components that we use. So we always, whenever we're considering these options, we do a trade and compare the pros and cons of those. So the PWAs are definitely something we're thinking about for future upgrades, but nothing's decided yet.
And just because, in case people aren't aware, that's more when it's like, so it's a web-based app instead of something that's downloaded on the phone. I think one disadvantage of that is, as my understanding, Joe, is that then you would need to have an internet connection to be able to do the observations. Which one of the advantages of having the download native app is that you can be in a place without signal, collect the data, and then return to someplace with signal to actually send in the data, which is, I think, a feature that is valuable to some people. Is that a fair statement of how that works?
Mostly, it turns out that you can support certain offline capabilities with PWAs, but the concern is not just offline, but what you can do offline and other aspects of the native capabilities that we try to provide. So I think we could probably support some of the offline, but we would perhaps lose some of the capabilities. Like I believe that there would be challenges, for example, with a PWA doing the augmented reality overlay. I'm not saying it can't be done, and just saying it may be more challenging, and in a lot of cases we've got to weigh the effort that it takes to support that.
Thank you. Sorry, the chat keeps jumping around on me. Mark asked a really interesting question about AI, and I just lost it again. Hang on.
Here, I think I found it, Holly.
Okay, thanks.
So this is from Mark. Will image recognition software be considered for users willing to refine the user's understanding of cloud and/or tree data collection, including cell phone images, e.g., preparing to take an image where the software cell phone is able to identify cloud tree type?
Yeah, so as a technical challenge, that's always fascinated me. Once we started looking at the AI capabilities that are, I think, as we all know, rapidly evolving, we thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if you could do some of that identification? But I would say that having the tool do that identification for you probably detracts a little bit from the overall education mission of the Globe program. And what we really want to do is teach people how to identify these things themselves, and perhaps not necessarily rely on the tool to do it. So it's a really fascinating technical challenge that that I find really neat, but it would take a lot of work to do it correctly, and it, as I said, would also sort of detract from that education mission.
And I would also add that we do have some groups taking the photographs and doing some AI and things on them after the fact in terms of land cover identification, also looking at the mosquito larvae photos and trying to do some identification of those. And there was an intern down with the clouds team at Langley that was looking at using some of the photos for cloud type identification, although there were some challenges. It's not as easy as it might seem to figure that out. So there are people not within the app, but looking at the photos after the fact and doing some of that work, that I assume that will almost certainly continue, even if we decide never to put those features directly into the app.
There's a question in here asking about what we see when we open the app. Are some of the protocols restricted to certain people and others not?
Yeah, so depending on what type of a user you are, the Observer app at a minimum will show all users what I showed earlier, what I referred to as the Observer protocols, the Clouds protocol, mosquito habitat mapper, land cover, and trees. But if you've become trained, either by attending a workshop or through e-training, if you've become trained as a Globe educator, then you will have access to additional protocols through the data entry button. So if you look if you look over my shoulder there, that little button up there, the data entry button, not everybody sees that. Traditionally, to be able to submit data for those other protocols, you have to go through training and learn how to conduct the protocol before you can submit. So that's the only portion of the app that is sort of gated, if you will, where we don't necessarily let everyone see that.
And doing the training can be done a little bit differently depending on your country. So that is something that in the US, anyone can access the online training, but other countries may do that differently. So if you're outside of the US, if you want to get trained, you would have to potentially work through your country coordinator, just as a little bit of a caveat.
I'm scrolling through the questions here. So Kevin had a couple of interesting questions about the alerts you receive from the app. I asked if you could change the alert sound to something other than the default sound, or have a different kind of sound when more than one satellite is overhead. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that alert system is set up and address those questions?
Sure. Yeah. So we for those alerts currently, we've traditionally just gone with the default sound. I will admit we hadn't given any thought yet to changing that to something perhaps more distinct. Especially, it makes sense that we all get so many different types of alerts on our devices these days for lots of reasons, that if you wanted to be able to distinguish this from others, it might be nice to have that sound different. So we could absolutely take that under advisement and look at what it would take to implement something like that. And perhaps if there's multiples, that's one sound. If it's solar noon, that's a slightly different sound. And that over time, for a power user that's using it often enough, you might be able to easily distinguish between those.
Filtering through the questions here. Let's see.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
Very
going to be no help trying to read through this chat right now. But
yeah, there's a lot of great things here. 23,500 observations is incredible, and congratulations. Thank you for your very active support of Globe.
So it looks like Boris has raised his hand. Should we let him ask a question aloud?
Thank you.
Hello,
I was
Boris.
looking at the chat and missed that. Please, Boris.
Thank you. Well, I have two apologies. I connected late. I couldn't see the beginning of this presentation. I'm sorry. And the second, the same for my English, probably is not the best one. I have two questions that probably were being presented during this connection, but I am very interested to know what results have you been using or data or pictures or observations, how our observations are making the enrichment of your research to see, well, that is the powerful that all the people that are making these observations is giving you that support. I'm interested to see that if it's available in that way. And that's one concern. And the other, the questions, when we make the picture of down, I understood that is the place where I am standing. Yeah, I see the floor. Okay, but I find the uncertainty about if the options of the places, for example, if there is muddy or are I don't know, is wet the area, but the place where I am is not wet. So I can report that it's muddy the area because the rain came recently, but in the place where I am is not wet. So my picture.
You were smart enough to not go step into the mud, right?
Yeah. So that is not is not making match the picture with the observation. Yeah. And I don't know if this makes confusion for you. And the last one is about the rain. If it's raining, it's quite difficult to be under the rain, getting wet and taking pictures then. And the telephone is getting wet too, and it's a problem drying the camera. But it's very useful if it's raining in the moment. That then when we take the pictures, that's my questions.
Sure. Well, I'm going to probably have to rely on some help from Holly and Kristen on some of these. I do know that there's an effort to better understand how people are using data within from Globe. Certainly, when large data sets are being exported, things like that. But I'll say from my perspective, one thing we've been able to see as developers is we get to see from afar these events that Globe conducts, the regional meetings, the annual meetings, things like that, and we get to see how students all around the world are using and consuming the data that you're contributing, that everybody is contributing, and it's really great to see it. In terms of being able to get into more of those specifics, that's probably not something I can answer terribly well, but would probably defer to Holly and Kristen on.
I've just put a link in the chat, Boris. We actually have on our website publications that have used the data. So I think rather than get into a lot of the details now, I would encourage you to visit that page. And then at the top of that page, those are focused on the 4 protocols, the 4 Globe, as we call them, the Globe Observer protocols. But there's also a link to the Globe data, a list of broader publications that use all of the Globe data. So it's on the website, some of that information.
Thanks, Kristen. And as far as classifying a site as muddy, the surface conditions, it doesn't have to be just necessarily right where you're standing, but the general area that is included in the observation is useful. And the reason for that is that if you're doing a comparison to satellite data, sometimes it's useful to know what the ground conditions are, so that there's some differentiation from atmospheric conditions. So knowing that there's water on the ground is a helpful piece of information.
But so I would say, although the app will sort of prompt you and will automatically take the photo down with that button, if there is something, just a little bit, if you tilt up a little bit and want to take, like there's a puddle over there, you certainly are welcome to just do that and sort of take the picture manually in that direction instead of relying on the auto photo. If you don't want to go stand in the puddle, certainly that is helpful to add that information, but you will, if you report that it's muddy, you've reported that it's muddy, even if it's not muddy under your feet, for example.
All right, we are at the end. There are a lot of questions in the chat that we didn't get to, and I apologize for that. I am grateful that you are here and actively asking questions. Thank you for your interest. There are a couple of ways for you to get your questions answered, particularly if your question was about a specific problem you're experiencing with the app. I encourage you, there's a little question mark on the app screen you can click, and that will send your question to the Globe Help Desk. You can also use the Globe Observer Help form, which is under Contact Us at observer.globe.gov. That email comes directly to me and to Kristen, and we do our best to answer them. And if needed, we'll bring Joe in to help us. And so anyway, if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to reach out. We would love to address those with you if we can.
And maybe what we can do, we don't always do this, but there were enough in the chat that maybe we can collate those and like put some written responses up. When you put up, we will post, I'll edit and clean up the captions for this and put the recording. And Joe, there was also a request to share your slides. So if that's okay with you, we can maybe do some follow-up, and we'll add that to the event page on the website in the next week or two. Give us a little bit of time to process things, but that's something we can also try to do, because there were some really excellent questions in the chat that we didn't get to.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, everybody. We will post this recording, and as Kristen said, if some of the questions that we didn't get to on the event page where you originally learned about this on the observer.globe website. So that should be there in a couple of weeks. Come back and check. So that's under events on observer.globe.gov, and look for the November Globe Observer Connect. Our next conversation will be on December 12th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That translates to, I'm confused. It is 6 p.m. and it's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. My apologies. I had been in Mountain Time and my brain is just not converting this one. Anyway, it translates to 2300 UTC. And in this case, we will be learning from a project that had been using Globe Observer to duplicate or repeat some historical photos to detect change using the Globe Observer land cover tool. So I'm excited to hear from the person who was working on that project primarily. So watch observer.globe.gov/go-connect for more information about that coming up soon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we can see many of you next month. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.